I'm waiting. It's preparing. In the meantime, why don't you guys say hello to each other a little bit? Just do a 30-second, since we don't have a very big group, 30-second on who you are, what you do, anything like that you'd like to share.
Sure, I can kick off. Mark Stockow. I'm in the Twin Cities, although today I'm not. And what I do is I help small business owners make their ideas real. And there's a number of different ways I do that, both from a consulting and fractional CXO role. And I'm glad to be here this morning.
Yes.
And I'm actually going to meet Becky on next Thursday in the flesh. But that's
Yes,
well
yes.
overdue.
I think we have met in person before, haven't we?
I'm not sure. We've had so many virtual conversations, it starts to blend. It could be, Becky. My memory's not what it used to be. So
Yeah, if I get stuck, I just say I can't remember anything. And then it's like, okay, free pass. Okay, Louisa, I think you came in because we met in Brenda Miller's group, right?
Yes, I was last week on Friday, and you left a link for this meeting today. So my background is I have been more than 15 years helping business development and sales teams to increase revenue. I am a marketing person, so what I do is alignment with the corporate strategy, sales goals, and put together the marketing plans, all the strategy go-to-markets for promotion, and help them to meet with the metrics to measure success. And I have been doing that in the federal work. And lately, the last job I had was AWS. So, and in that role, I'm trying to grow and find new opportunities.
And Louisa is in a job search. So, hey, if anybody's got any ideas or connections or whatever, I bet she'd be interested.
absolutely.
Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Nice to meet you.
Good
Okay,
morning.
Becky.
I'm Becky Detmer. I am also in the Twin Cities area. I am with Insperity, like Tom, and we are HR business solutions, outsourcing HR, lots of different gamuts that you can talk about in the HR field there, but all things HR.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. And Tom.
And Becky, you made my job easy. So I am exactly what Becky is. The only thing different is I'm in San Diego. I'm originally from the Twin Cities. So I have a lot of family and friends still out there. And nice to see everybody.
And the phone person that can't find their phone, do you want to say anything or become visible? We're just doing quick intros. And if you can't, because maybe you're coming in via phone and things aren't all tuned in, that's fine. Well, okay, we got another person. I decided to do the waiting room this time. I hope that's okay with everybody, but I heard recently some more horror stories about people that had people jump into their room and they were doing porn and all kinds of stuff, and it totally screwed up their room and didn't do much for their credibility. So I thought, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go back to using the waiting room. So thanks for your patience on that. All right, Terry, are you with us? Do you want to do a quick little here's who I am and that kind of thing? She was here.
Yeah, I think we might have lost her.
Yeah, kind of looks like it.
Oh, well.
Okay, she's back. Well, trying to come back. You know, we seem to have more of our technology working pretty well, but still some weird things happen, don't they?
They do. My favorite thing is when Zoom decides that my microphone is actually a speaker and nobody can figure out why I can't hear them.
Well, I do have my auxiliary mic, so hopefully that's coming through. Okay, Terry, we were just doing short little intros. You want to do a little intro? Muted. She just said,
There we go. Yeah,
okay.
I popped in and popped out. Sorry about that. I was, doing stuff. But at any rate, Terry Matson, Beginning Today Lifestyle Wellness. I'm a life coach. So I work with people who are going through transition, a job change, just trying to figure out what their next steps are in life, and just needed a champion to help them get through there. And I'm sorry I'm late, but
No problem. And she's also a real expert on getting people healthy.
Yeah, and look at this. And I'm going to be in and out of this because something's wrong.
Yeah, go, just kill your video. That might take care of it. Okay.
Hey, Becky.
Yes, hi.
This is Camille Benoit, the Where the Hell's My Phone? I am joining on my phone, and that's the name of my phone. So I didn't realize that Zoom would come through with the name of my phone and not me. So anyway, you're in on my inside joke for the name of my phone. Anyway, I am a fractional digital strategist, and I know you, Becky, through the Starbucks group.
Exactly. Okay, awesome to have you here. And
Thank
I just realized I don't have my spinner wheel set up, so I was just gonna get that done. We'll get that going here. Because we are having marvelous prizes, etc. See if this will get me to the right place. Okay. And I'm gonna kill one more thing. So most of you know me. I'm gonna do just a little backgrounder. So my work has always been in the B2B space and working with companies that are looking to increase their revenues and profits. So that's what I love doing. That's what that's what makes me happy. And when I get to work with companies that are stalled out, stuck, not sure what to do, maybe been through some downturns and are kind of in tough shape, wherever they're at, we'll just get in there and start working on figuring out what's going on and what's working and not, and how can we put together a plan and a process to get them growing. So I do have a particular thing that I was planning to do today, and I'll just ask if anybody came in with a question first.
No question here.
Okay. All right, I'm getting back to you guys. So is everybody anxious to meet Gabby?
Sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let me go find Gabby. Okay. All righty. There you go. Can you see my screen? So how many of you here, now I won't be able to see you, but raise your hand if you use ChatGPT.
I've played with it.
Okay, or you can put a 1 in the chat box or something. And how many of you have pretty much done nothing on chat? Okay, all right. So this will be basic for some. Sorry. Okay, well, this will be basic for some of you and new for the rest of you. So one of the things that I decided is that I would just share some of the things that I've done. And what I suggest to anybody using chat is to have it help you on things you already know, because then you can be your own fact checker. I did some stuff months ago, and I'm all into benchmarking because, of course, that's one of the things that usually is part of a whole marketing process. So I just put something in and I said, what are the key points in benchmarking? It came back with garbage. Then I thought, okay, how about benchmarking in a technical world or something? Then it came back with some good stuff. And my husband, the engineer, I went and talked to him. I go, hey, what do you think about this? This looks pretty good. And he goes, yeah. And the first thing I showed him, he's like, yeah, that's just garbage. Well, then I said, asked a question, something about doing sorry, I was in chat again just to see what your comments were. And okay, go away. And then I came back and said, well, tell me about benchmarking in the B2B space or in the business application. Then it came up with the stuff that I knew. So I just tell you this story because chat can be a phenomenal resource, or it can give you garbage. And sometimes it goes AWOL. So you have to go back and tell it what to do. So I'm just going to show you a couple little demo things. So, and I don't know if it's my computer doing weird things or if somebody's not muted and if we're picking up some of their sounds. So I'm going to go to one of the questions that I had. And I'm going to copy it and paste it in. And if any of you, like Louisa, I know you haven't done too much with this. If you want to pull open chat yourself and just plug in something to see how it goes, feel free. So a while back,
Mhm.
well, a number of years ago, I wrote a book on the barriers to networking and came up with, I think it was 14 barriers. Then I thought recently, since I put out my journal on Amazon, I thought, wow, maybe I can resurrect my book and get that out, because I won't have to print 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 or whatever, because now with Amazon, you just do, it's like JIT printing. So they just print and send out the book one at a time as they're ordered. So I thought, you know what? I need to do a little research and update, make sure I know what's going on and see if there's any new information. So I had about 60 responses. And so here's what I did. I said, here's my whole big plug it into chat. So I said, please summarize these barriers. I think everybody can see this. If you can't, unmic and tell me that you can't see it. So you can see the first thing here I put in, please summarize these barriers of networking based on highest frequency into key ideas and number them. I gave them my data. So again, I had spent 3 weeks already analyzing the data, and not constant. Just from time to time, I go, okay, let me put this in my head, let my brain sort of sort it out. I'll come back. So I don't know if any of you work that way, but sometimes I read stuff and then I let it sort of sit, and then I go back and read it again and kind of go, okay, is anything popping out? So with this, these are all the comments that I got. I'm just scrolling. You can see tons of information. Like I said, information from 60 different people. So let's just see what chat has to say today and see what it comes up with. And you can see it printing, can't you? So it says lack of time was a barrier for rejection or failure, lack of confidence, lack of clarity, shyness or introversion, technical difficulties, prejudice or discrimination, lack of strategic goals and measurements of success, feeling awkward about asking for something, not knowing what to say or how to present yourself, unwillingness to learn effective networking. And the 12th, well, let's see if it goes beyond 12. Okay, oh, it's going to 13. Okay. Being too sales focused, difficulty in attending events, decision to attend. Wow, this got a little carried away this time. So this does not look like it's doing a very good job. So I'd probably go back and narrow some of the parameters, because when I did this the first time, I'll just tell you the information. Well, I guess I can share that too. Let me go to a different share. Oh, that wasn't the one I wanted. Okay, it's in here. So the first time that I put my data in, it came back with 8 ideas. I think you can see this, everybody? Okay, so it came up with 8. And for some reason, I don't know why I asked it, 9. Okay, then I went back and did it another time and I got 15. And these seem to be a little bit more accurate. So the reason I wanted to show you that was that I think it's a great tool and you can use it for your own research, your own thoughts, your own whatever. So I was going to show you maybe one more idea here. So we'll go back to chat. And another thing, anybody here ever get stuck and not get started on something you need to get done? Well, we had an award program that was just actually last night. And in one of the committee meetings, well, for like 3 weeks, I think it was, I said, hey, has anybody got a letter that's going out to the people that didn't make it in the finalists? We had 40 nominees. And I said, has anybody got that? I think I asked that question like 3 weeks in a row. And finally, at one of the meetings, one of the people said, well, why don't you take a stab at that, Becky? And I'm like, oh, great. Because it was one of those days where I had every hour practically booked, and I was just on the verge of getting cranky. So I thought, what am I going to do? All right, here's what I did. Can everybody see this? I came to chat and I said, please write 5 different emails for businesses who were nominated for an award and didn't become a finalist. Be gracious and complimentary and encouraging. Leave them with a positive feeling and invite them to attend the ceremony. I thought that's all I want to say, but I don't want to take the time to write it. So let's just see what kind of mood Gabby's in today. So you can see that first one where it's basically, well, let's wait for the second. So, we send out possibility. I want to personally thank you for taking the time to submit your nomination for the award. We received tremendous amount of high quality nominations, and yours was among the best. Although you're not selected as a finalist, please know, well, you can see what it says. So I got 5 versions of a letter that really put together my thoughts. And how long is this taking? A minute or 2? Well, what ended up happening is we then basically didn't use these because one of the other guys has a media background, so he ended up putting it together. But basically, his letter came out a lot like any of these, and then he did a little blurb on the finalists and said, ABC company, and here's a little bit about them and all that kind of stuff. But again, sometimes I don't think I'm alone. I have something I want to get done and I don't have time, or I get stuck and I feel like, okay, can you just tell me how to do these 3 things and organize it for me? So just wanted to share those with you. I did another one that was for my foundation where I'm president. And I said, hey, similar thing. I'll just throw that in there. And you can see what I did for that one. I said, please write a letter from a foundation, which is a 501c3, telling grant applicant that they were not selected. There are a number of exceptional organizations who applied, compliment the organization, that they do important. So, I didn't even get my thoughts straight. Impactful work and make a difference in the community. It was a hard choice, which is guided by our guidelines. See, that's why I wasn't writing it, because that's a pretty crappy sentence. Thank you for applying. Be gracious and complimentary. And then I said, write 4 more with slight variations. So off it went. And again, these are probably going to be a little bit different than what I originally had. But here you can see it says, on behalf of the foundation 501c3, blah, blah, blah. So what did I do? I picked one of these and I went in and I did a replace and I put the name of our foundation in. I did some tweaking. None of these ended up being the final letter that I used. And I have an editor, thank God, that I can just go down the hall and go, okay, there's 5 of these. I kind of like number 3. What do you think? Here's what I'm trying to say. And I don't want to come out and say the negative. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't make it. How you say that in a nice way, that makes them, I just hate coming in with a negative, well, everything was great, but you didn't win. One of those kinds of answers. So again, just simple things like that can even take the load off. I am doing a talk, Mark, at number 9 today at noon. That's Rotary number 9, which is like a really big deal. And I have my presentation, my PowerPoint and everything all done. I'm talking about the 4 revenue strategies. So I went to chat, as I call Gabby. I went and I said, hey, tell me something about, give me information on the 4 revenue strategies. Well, unfortunately, chat doesn't know what I'm talking about because they don't know these 4 strategies, apparently, based on a particular model that I use. So that was garbage. So like I said, it can end up being garbage or it can be helpful. So then I came back and I said, well, here's the 4 revenue strategies. Tell me what you can, or tell me about it. The other thing that I wanted to say is, like, on any of these, well, let me just put that in. Tell me the 4 revenue strategies. And you'll see it just probably is going to give me garbage unless it remembers me from the past. Yeah, this is garbage. Okay, so then I might say, and I'm typing bad. Okay, let me just fix this a little bit. Okay, so there's my 4 strategies: product development, market development, diversification, and market penetration. So here I've asked it to give me highlights of each. We'll just wait a little bit. Shouldn't take too long. So it's talking about highlights of, oh my God, it's still screwed up. Okay, just a second. I think it still is going off on the other one. See if I can. Okay, see what's happening. So that's what I mean. Sometimes it goes caca. So it's talking about market penetration. Maybe I was missing the boat on that. Product development. Now it's going a lot faster. Now, do any of you use chat for something kind of like this or not? Okay, great. I see Becky nodding her head. Now, the other thing that I wanted to just share is I could come back and I could say, tell me how Phil, the god of marketing, Phil Kotler, would. Okay, so I could say, tell me how, well, there, I got bad grammar again. So how would he describe this? Because he is the ultimate when it comes to marketing. So here we're going off on that. And then the other thing that I found to be really helpful, and I work with somebody that's got tons of details on how to do this, so I don't want to share his IP on that. But the other thing that you can do is, like, say on this, I could say, give me the top 3 ideas in bullet form for each. Tell it to stop doing what it's doing, and then we'll do this one. Okay, well, there we go. But I could come back, so that was a poor prompt, but I could come back and say, please expand on the 4 strategies. If I'm doing a presentation, for example, or, you know, Louisa, you could do this really great for doing company research too. So another thing that's really handy is if you start your search and you get all this information, is just to say, please expand, tell me more. Is there more? I just did some searches the other day on something that I'm working on. It's called the millionaire mindset. And I thought, okay, well, I want to see what they think would be in that concept. And then I went back, I did a few different searches the other day, and I went back and I said, what are the sources that you use to find this information? Because if they're pulling things from 3 books, I want to know what those 3 books are. Then sometimes I'll go back, like in that, when I'm searching millionaire mindset, I might go back and say, what are the top 3 books? Or I might not even say top 3. I might say, what are the top books on this topic? And then you go, and so you can research them. Or if you're doing a talk, you can then just reference that in your talk and say, if you want to dig in more, here's some books that really expand on this topic. So the whole thing, I guess I would say, and let's have some questions too, if this is something that you want to know more about, is the how you ask the questions. And one thing I've heard more and more people that are using this talk about is to say, just think about it like you're talking to an assistant. So if you say, what can you tell me about these strategies? And it kind of gets you garbage and you go, oh, sorry, I wasn't very clear. Here's the 4 strategies. then it'll tell you something. And then you might sit there and go, well, gosh, do you have any examples of companies that use this and were successful? I've done that a gazillion times. And then sometimes you might come back and go, make sure the examples you give me are business to business, or can you give me some in the consumer space? Whatever it is that you're looking for, you just keep narrowing. And I have found, because you can build a bunch of this in one thing, where you could say, here's my 4 strategies, give me the highlights of each, and give me the pros and cons, and write me a 500-word blog. And you could do that all in one prompt. The only thing I found is sometimes it gets goofed up. So I've decided more recently that it's helpful to just take one step at a time. And just keep in mind that you could keep asking the questions and digging deeper and tell me more. Is there more? How about this? How about that? So it's like having a conversation. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that. And just any questions that anybody has.
Yes, I have one. Actually, I mentioned at the beginning that I used that initially because in the interviews now that you have with companies, sometimes they request you to give to prepare a project, right? So the last one was a demand generation plan for 2 quarters. So I have my ideas from past experiences from the past jobs. So I have kind of the talking points, but I wanted to make sure the talking points that I had were the ones that in general everyone's using in the federal area. So that's kind of the time that I use it. But they put, I think it put the bullet points that I use and added more. So it complemented my research for that project.
Good, that's excellent. And, that's where too, those questions that we have rolling around in our head are the ones that we're going to ask chat. I've been working on something for my membership group on Facebook where I want to talk about financial statements. Well, a lot of us, it's like financial statements. And even though I started a finance company and did all the financial analysis, I'm like, oh God, my eyes want to roll to the back of my head. And I'm like, I also did some boutique stock trading stuff. And I was able to do a very complex trade. And for me, because I've also worked in high tech, one of the things I guess I do a lot of, and I'm pretty good at, is taking the complex and making it simple. And so like in my stock option trade, I turned it into kind of a visual, and I'd say, you got to have this up here and you got to have this down here. And, kind of like, that's what this means. And that's what this means. So I was trying to figure out something on income statements, balance sheet, cash flow, all of that, trying to figure out what can I do to make it more visual. Well, so far chat has not been too helpful on that. But,
Right.
for so many of us, I think if we could say, just show me the picture, because if you go assets, liabilities, net profit, well, that's pretty simple. But is there a way to sort of visually do it? And I thought, well, I can't put a smiley face on assets and a frowny face on liabilities because that's too trite and too stupid. But, so there's some things, but there's another thing called Mind Journey that does do visual and does do graphical things. Graphic.
What is the name? Because I wanna mention that after in the project, I provided information, but I needed some templates, but I didn't want to use my past company's templates because
Okay, I put it in chat. I can't remember now if it's Mind Journey or Mid Journey, but do a little searching on that. I think it's Mid Journey. So there's getting to be so many tools, and in fact, Sam, the CEO of OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, he was just on CNBC this morning talking about government regulations and safety and security and all that. And frankly, I just hope Elon Musk does what he says and that he comes up, because he was one of the early ones on ChatGPT before it was sold. I believe it was sold to Microsoft. And so he's talking about coming back with something. And I'm like, yay, come back, because I think he'd put together something that, at least on the early side, he was not worried about making money. And hey, we're all in business to make money, but I'm not a big fan of Microsoft where you have to pay subscription for like everything you do. And like Adobe's gone subscription and some of that. And you almost feel like it's a money pit after a while. And you go, how many things do I have to be paying for? So I kind of am waiting for going, okay, Elon, you got a better deal for us. So we'll see what happens on that. Now, somebody came up with a question here, which is great. And yeah, things will glitch. So like when I've asked it, like the millionaire mindset, and let's say that it gives me 9 bullets and I say, well, tell me more about those 9. In the past, I've done something like that and it goes good on the first 3. And then after that, it's coming up with different bullet points. I'm like, where did you go? Well, that's almost like any of us in our own head. Where did we go? So that's where, again, sometimes you need to come back. If you had like nine points that you wanted to expand on, you might need to paste them in or watch it, because I've gotten different documents and not watched it close enough. And then I go copy and save them into Word. And then I go back and I'm going to do something. And I'm like, oh, for cripe's sakes, here's the original list of 9. And the second list is only matching up on the top 3. So just kind of pay attention to what it's doing, because that can drive you crazy. And one of the questions was, it maintains context from one message to the next. So if you want to call it a session, and you're doing like what I was showing there, where, write me a letter that does this and that, then I could have come back. The first time I did it, I said, write me a letter to award recipients that says da 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 da. And then I'm like, oh, I'd really like to get 5 versions. So then you come back and go, well, give me 4 more versions. Oh, the other thing I was going to do this morning, and I forgot, I thought I'd like to have one of those and say, write it in the style of Dear Abby. And I thought, well, that would be fun to see how that comes back. So if there are experts in your field or, whatever you're researching, in fact, I might go back and see if I can just plug that in. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I don't have the right thing pulled up here. But you can go back and you can say, hey, there's an expert, like I did my Phil Kotler, since he is the ultimate guru of marketing, probably in the world, and basically say, well, what would Phil Kotler say about this? How would he explain it? And then you go, oh, well, there's a couple interesting things. I agree or I don't agree. I mean, there's plenty of times that things come up where I'm like, that's not right, or I don't agree. So again, use your own frame of reference. And so the question was, it seems to maintain context. If I don't like where it's going, what can I do? You can come back and you can say, hey, I think those answers are off track. Go more in and tell it whatever that direction is. The other thing that I've done other times is I just open a new session and I'll come up with my question, but I'll reframe it. Or I might give more parameters that I didn't have the first time. And there's people that are all over this and complaining about it because it's politically biased and it's this and that. And I'm like, it might be. What I'm doing has nothing to do with political bias. I don't, so I hate to say I don't care, but I don't, because I'm going in there and saying, I want to write this thank you note, or I want to write this follow-up thing. Help me get it organized. Well, that's not going to be a political thing. And stuff that I've shared with you today. And like Louisa has done, where she's gone back and said, all right, I want to say these, or here's my story. What are the good points? Or how do I make this? You could say something, Louisa, like if there was somebody that was like the ultimate guru that has books out on job searches or how to answer the tough questions or whatever, you could come back and you could say, how would Bob Smith answer these questions? Or how would Bob Smith tell this story? And so if there's a guru, you can ask for it. Then you can come back and decide, do you like it, not like it, or which parts do you like? Because most of the time you don't want to like do a copy and paste. And that's where people, I think, run into some trouble, because we have to all be an editor on our own writing and on these things. I mean, you could even go in and you could write something. Let's just, okay. Customer retention, a topic of mine. Let's say I wrote something and I put it in chat and I said, how could I improve on this to make it more interesting and engaging? And I spit out my document. It'll come back with improvements. Or I might have something on, like I said, I've used this a lot. I might have something on let's just use client retention, and I've got, I don't know, 5 bullet points or something. And then I can go and say, hey, give me, I use this one a lot. Give me an example and a case study for each of these main points. And like I said, I've done some things where I'll go back and I'll go, well, make sure it's business to business, because that's my world. And then I've gone back and I've said, you know, can you tell me some examples or stories that are small business or companies that are less than 5 years old? You know, it's just take those questions that are rolling around in your head and ask them to chat. And you might get something good or you might get garbage. But hey, why not ask it? Because it takes a matter of minutes. And then you decide if it's useful. You know, part of, I think, the challenge sometimes with, that's why I call it Gabby, is that sometimes you get too much. Right? And frankly, like when I did my research and I had the 60 data points from people because I asked one question and it was open-ended. And then if you do any research, you know what I'm talking about. And so I had all this stuff and I basically wanted it just synthesized, organized, boiled down to the key themes. Well, if I didn't like it, I could tell it to do it over. Or I could say, you know, can you boil this down into 5 points instead of 15? You know, so it's just that process of what are we wondering about and what questions are we asking ourselves? That's the way I use it mostly, is what I'm going through and I go, well, how about this? And how about that? And I might be going through another thing I was researching and it said, you know, and there's various tools to help with this. So then I go, well, what are those tools? Where do you find them? Well, what are the pros and cons? Because isn't that what we'd be wondering if we were reading something and we go, well, what do you mean by that? So you just keep asking. But like I said, then sometimes you get too much stuff and then you drive yourself crazy. Okay, other questions, comments, because I could go on and on. And hopefully, I mean, we don't want to take the whole time. You probably have some other questions.
Hey, Becky, real quick, I had to step away, so I don't know if you already got to this one, but I have not used as much as I should have. Had signed up a while back for Jasper, which I think is based on ChatGPT. Have you had any experience with that? And did I throw away money when I signed up for 1 year?
Yeah, so what I know about Jasper, because I haven't looked at it myself, because the gurus that I hang out with say that OpenAI is better. Now, I signed up for OpenAI quite some time ago and was told, if you do that, you don't need to do the $20 per month thing because you should already be in like Flint. And so I haven't, but as far as I know, in order to get the latest version, ChatGPT 4, you probably do have to pay the $20 a month thing.
Okay.
But I now have access through my CRM company that does a whole ton of stuff. I now have access to it for free at the latest version. So how slick is that? But that's where my gurus that I hang out with feel that OpenAI or the ChatGPT is better.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have suggestions or tips or anything else, questions, and we can certainly move on. Is there anything else that comes to mind anybody wants to share or that you've learned and found helpful? Becky, you've been using it. Any other things that you've found that are helpful, or is it kind of similar to what I've shared?
Similar. I mean, it's kind of nice to not overthink things. That's what I use it for. Like, here's an idea I want. I don't want to overthink it. Give me an idea and it's done faster than I could have ever done it.
That's awesome. You know, and that's a great point, because like I said, when I got my 15 bullet points back on my research, I could have gone back and said, is there a way to boil this down to 5?
Right.
You know,
And
excellent.
Becky, I've been kind of the same way too, as I mentioned to you the other day, where I started playing around with this thing because so many people are dabbling with it. So because of that, I wanted to understand, you know, what this thing was all about, how they're using it. And once you're in there, it just simplifies everything so much. And then I find myself in there more. So I love it.
Cool. And I mean, it's one of those rabbit hole things where I suggest you almost set yourself a timer and you say, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes just doing some basic research, or you say 30 or whatever. And if you do time blocking or anything like that, or kind of manage your schedule, plug in a time limit, because it can go on forever. Or if you're saying, okay, this is after my normal hours of work, I'm just going to dig and dig and dig and dig. And, you know, I don't know, if it takes me an hour, I don't care. If it takes me 2 hours, I don't care, because I'm curious. But otherwise, especially if it's during the day and you're trying to focus on things that you need to get done, it's that old time blocking idea of set a timer, give yourself 15 minutes. Okay. All right. What other questions, since now we have gone for quite a while here? Anything that you came in with that you said, geez, this is something I really want to know about, other than chat? Or do you want me to keep talking about chat GPT? Or anything recently that you've run into that you kind of got stuck on?
I would say maybe, Becky, the conversation we had the other day, it was kind of funny because I went to an event right after that, as you know, and I was having, I swear to God, the same cookie cutter conversation with a good friend of mine out here in marketing. And he was talking about working with CMOs, marketing executives, and how there's just such a great divide between strategic and tactical. And a lot of them, there's a lot of assumptions or perceptions that they're doing both, or they're maybe in an area more than they're not. But at the end of the day, there just really isn't. So maybe if you want to maybe get into some of that here, if you don't mind.
Sure, because that's kind of my soapbox. Let me just quickly, though, if I can do this, let me see if I've got everybody on my spinner wheel so that we can do our prize in a bit here. Okay, now is anybody's name missing? I think you can all see my spinner. So is anybody's name missing from that? Terry's, but I think she's gone. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think I've got everybody on there. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. So one of the things Tom and I were talking about that he illuminated on is that my soapbox is that marketing is poorly understood. And by a lot of people, they use the term loosely. And I've got 2 degrees in marketing. I taught marketing, did seminars on marketing for years. And so I am a bit of a purist. Some of us are referred to as classically trained. And I'm not sure if they just mean we're old farts or what. Oh, I suppose I shouldn't say that. But there are principles to marketing, and people don't know that and skip that. And we've got tons of agencies that do great work, and yet their focus is pretty narrow. And they're focused on tactical things like, oh, we got to fix your website. Oh, we got to fix your SEO. Oh, your LinkedIn profile is junk. And so they're focused on tactical things. And where Tom and I were talking is that it's so important to make sure we've got what I consider like the basics or the foundation. And that's actually where I work with people. I've got a free Facebook group. Now, I don't know if I even have the links handy, but I've got a free Facebook group that's called Ready, Set, Grow, Revenue and Profit Strategies for the Busy Executive. Well, people can come in once a week and see my free video that I talk about different concepts. There's 3 modules, basically. Ready, get set, and then grow. And so there's content. And that's pretty, it's not as structured as my revenue or my membership group, where it's basically step-by-step to work on a marketing plan. Yet in both of these, I really start with, you got to have the foundations. And in a small business in particular, it's even more so. You need to have your vision, mission, and values clarified. Now, a lot of times in a bigger company, that gets fuzzy too. And so it's not like big companies have this all figured out. Louisa, you're kind of nodding your head. Have you been in big corporate?
Yes, most of my experiences at the large companies, Boeing, AT&T,
Okay.
AWS, yeah, and it's totally true.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, so you're AWS too. Okay. So I'm sure you saw plenty of lack of clarity in those and shifting things. And then there's certain messages at certain level. And then, you know, those of us that might be in middle management or worker bees or whatever, then we're hammered on different messaging. I think it's really important to have that. And most people, when they talk about marketing, they're like, well, that's not part of marketing. I'm like, well, I don't care. You got to do it anyway. So I came up with my own and I called it strategic marketing 30 years ago. And apparently Phil Kotler and I must have had the same brainwave because he was using that term as well. Anyway, but then you really want to be clear on understanding your target market, which again, the media people are calling avatar and persona because they didn't go to school and learn the right language. But, you know, that might connect better for people. So, hey, if people go, yep, get it. But also avatar and persona tends to be more on consumer products, where those of us in the B2B or industrial space, you know, we're dealing with different elements when we talk about target marketing, and we've got different segmentation variables than in consumer. But anyway, really, really need to be clear on your target market. The other thing I'm just a beast on or a fanatic on is information. Like my talk that I'm doing today, Mark, I've got the 4 revenue strategies, and information basically and research is behind every single one of them. We have got to have good information and understand what's customers are saying, prospects are saying, what are their pains, all that stuff. And Becky, I know you know that because you're working with companies all the time. And if you're not talking about their pains, they're like, hey, I don't need to talk to you. I got other stuff to do. So getting all of that clarity and looking at then also what's working and what's not working. I mean, we all do this, I'm sure. There's plenty of times that we are not slowing down to look at are what we're doing working, are the things that we are doing working or not working. So there's all of that. Then it's putting together all those pieces to grow the revenue. That still's at a strategic level. I call it the secret formula. And I use the 7 P's of marketing instead of the 4 that were traditionally part of that concept. And then once we get that, we look at our objectives. So it's usually revenue growth. So how much are we going to grow the business? Then it's the strategies of, okay, what is it we're going to do to hit that? And then the tactics of what are all the details? What's the how? And, you know, I've put out a couple of videos on that. If anybody's interested, let me know. I'll send you the links. Otherwise, you can go to my YouTube channel. And so what Tom and I were discussing a lot is that a lot of people jump in to the tactical side and go off and do things, but it doesn't tie back to your overall objectives. And so then you're spending, or a company is spending, a pile of money on things that probably aren't going to get them the results. And it's just because ABC company did something doesn't mean it works for ours. Mark, you got a comment or question? You're muted
Yeah,
still.
there we go. What you're saying resonates. I heard a talk a week or 2 ago from someone that talked about what they called strategic content marketing. And part of what they're saying is, you know, growing up where I did, there was always the talk about everybody sells. Well, similar thing is everybody in the company markets too, right? That messaging and so forth. And yet, to your point, there's so much today of these little point projects or random acts of marketing, and the messages aren't aligned because the people aren't aligned, right? And so anyway, I am absolutely on board with what you're saying. You have to have consistent messaging, and your employees need to understand that too, because they're on the front line. So if they don't get it, doesn't matter what you're pushing out with you know, social media or whatever else, it's going to come back as, well, that's not what they said, right? Dissonance. So
Yes.
I definitely buy off.
All righty. Thank you for that, Mark. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Because I just had something I was going to share, my contact stuff. I found it. So there you go. If you want to join my free group, you're more than welcome. If you know anybody that's in a small business under 5 million, it's really geared to B2B. And in the free group, I'm telling people, if you're a consumer company, you can still come. Just understand that my focus is B2B. So if you think something doesn't make sense, well, maybe it doesn't if you're a consumer or retail type business. if there's anything that I've talked about that you want to know more about, email me. That's my QR code there. And then the last one is for my journal. The great, well, you can't see that because I'm sharing my journal. That I really came up with as something that I want to be positive, encouraging of people, because I want people to write down their ideas, their hopes and dreams, and not discount them or not forget about them. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where they say, yeah, I don't write them down. And somebody, I said, well, get a journal. I don't care if you use mine, get something and write it down, have sections, have something where you say, here's my new product ideas. Here's my such and such ideas. You can have a section and call it my vacation ideas, whatever it is. But how many times do we just not write things down, and then the moment is gone, the idea is gone? So there's that. Then, so feel free to reach out. Oh, the other thing is I do have my YouTube channel. That's not on here. If anybody wants to know, one of the things that I did a while back was talk about QR codes. And I thought everybody knew QR codes. And we went for a half hour on QR codes. And so I've got my replay of that. If anybody says, hey, want to do that? How do you do it? I also have 3 PDFs for the simple QR code, the medium intense one, and the more advanced one. If that's something that any of you can use, let me know, because I thought, well, there I was Friday night. Yeah, because I am retarded or idiotic. So there I am Friday night working on my PDFs, 3 versions of how to do a QR code on a Friday night. See, that's how wacky I get. So I thought, well, if I was doing that Friday night till like 10 o'clock, I sure wish somebody wanted it. So if anybody needs that, let me know. Now I'm going to get our little spinner up. Okay, where did my spinner go? There it is. Okay. Okay, so not that you can see it now since I've got that on the screen, but I've got my journal. I'm giving away my brilliant ideas, hopes, and dreams. And I got a headphone. Anyway, let's just go. Let's see. The first thing will go to Mark. I'll just bring it next week.
You can do that, Becky, but you may or may not know, I already have one of those, and although I may need another one at some point, I would prefer to you get it to somebody else that does not have it. So how's that?
Okay, so here's your option. You can either have my Love from Grandma book, or you can have the headphones. It's a Bluetooth headset. I'll show you that in a minute. Let me do the next drawing, then I'll get out of this thing. Okay, so let's spin for prize number 2. Well, isn't that about right? Becky power time. So here's the headset. If you want this, Mark, or if you want my Love from Grandma book, this is a Bluetooth headphone headset, whatever they're called.
Yeah, I'll take the Love from Grandma book. I'm good on headsets.
Okay. All right, good enough. Now, Becky, this would be your gift then, if you're okay with that.
I love it.
Awesome. And I should just give you a little preview. So there's the title on every page and the pages to lines to write. Then there's a quote that I think is inspirational. I'll just show you this. We got just like 2 minutes left. Because everything, this is a journal. How simple can I get it, right?
I have a journal on my Target list right now, so I can take it off.
That is perfect.
Mine is,
So,
my current one is full.
yay. Okay, good job. So I just have to tell you this because everything had a reason. So see this page where it says brilliant ideas, hopes, and dreams, and there's like some artwork behind it. Well, that's my son's artwork. And the whole idea was that a lot of times we have ideas and we think they're weird or they don't connect or whatever. Well, if you can see the more intense 100% resolution, you can see how precise this has to be to get everything to fit together. So my underlying message is, even if we have these ideas and we think they're all over the place, hey, at some point they fit. And all of a sudden we can see what the connections are. So anyway, like I said, I had to probably overthink a simple journal.
I love it.
But Becky, if you will, yeah, I know I have your card somewhere, but would you mind either sending me an email? Do you have my
We-
email address?
Having pass next week too, if you're going to the bank networking on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. I should be there. Let's count on that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Let me know if there's anything that you need. You know, I put up my QR codes. If there's anything, you know, anybody that wants to come to the free group, those are for businesses under 5 million. I'm hoping to get in touch with the small business development centers and economic development people and say, hey, you know, if you got people coming in that you're working with and they just need some support, here's a whole bunch of free stuff. So if you know people in that side of the world that I can connect with, that would be great. And like I said, if anybody wants the QR code video or the PDFs, let me know. Because like I said, working on Friday night, I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? I'd like to share if anybody can use it. Okay, any last parting comments? Because we're about to wrap up. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for being here. And Louise, I hope that helped you with some of the chats.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I learned a lot today.
And
Thank
good
you.
luck on your job search. We'll
Thank
be
you.
rooting for you.
Thanks.
Becky, any comments?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
for being here.
Becky.
Tom, Camilla.
Thank you so much,
Camille?
Becky. Great job as always. Mark, good to see you and nice to meet everybody else. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Terrific. And reach out to any of us, frankly. You know, we're all here to be support to each other.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend,
Becky.
everybody.
Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.
See you
Have a
two of
good
you next
weekend.
week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.